Hey, hi. This just in from the world's worst camera angle. But I've got the baby in the floor in the lounger and he's cool right now. And I thought I would try for part 3. We'll see. I'm going to try to go fairly quick because I want to go try to get some sleep before our next feeding. See if I can get a little more sleep tonight, which would be great. So where I left off was I got the epidural. I'm up in the air. I get the epidural. And so after that, as we know, there's not a lot to talk about because I'm comfortable for the most part. What I want to talk about is this epidural situation with my girls. With the epidural, the way that worked was my left side, I could feel nothing. My left leg was dead. My right side, I could feel some things. I could feel activity. I could feel pressure. I could feel some pain. Honestly, I could feel some pain. And I had basically full mobility in my leg, in my right side. It's a little different situation with this one, and we'll get to that. Are you starting to be less happy here with this situation? Would you like a pacifier? Please hold. We'll see about a pacifier. Okay, we're back. So, yeah. That is how epidurals worked for me before. And I was really confused with this one. And it only became more of a thing. So, I'm there. I'm basically comfortable. I can feel some stuff, but it's whatever. Pain is creeping in, and they're like, well, you have this button. When the light lights up or whatever, push the button. It'll dose you more on your epidural, whatever. I'm feeling the pain, but I'm not hitting the button because I'm like, I dealt with horrible pain this morning. This is whatever. I don't really care. No big deal. I had people come see me, come visit, blah, blah, thus and so. Therefore, yet again, another reason I was glad I got the epidural because people came. And I was not really expecting people to come, but they did. Nobody really asked. They just showed up. But that's okay. It was mainly, a couple friends that I feel comfortable with, so it's okay. And then the other thing that was coming up was they were checking me. I was progressing, which was great. But every time they checked me, they would say whatever the number was, basically 100% effaced. And it was always with a bulgy bag. So their concern was that my water wasn't breaking. And they're like, it's a bulgy bag of water. And I'm like, okay, to me that sounds like it's on the verge of breaking. My water has always broke with my girl. With both my girls, my water broke on its own. So I really didn't consider that an issue. Well, right away, the nurses kept talking about calling the doctor in on his lunch break to break my water. And I'm like, no, I don't really want that. I'm like, I've never had my water broken. They were shocked about that. And I'm like, no, it's broken on its own. And ultimately, I would just really like to wait and see if it does naturally. I feel like I've just started this process. And that made me feel a little bit like herding cattle. I got admitted. I was doing it the admitting paperwork at 9. I got my epidural around 11. I guess 11 or 11:30. But everything in between say 10:30 and 11:30 everything was just me waiting for them to get the anesthesiologist there. I'm sitting there completing on my own. And in that time, in that very short amount of time, they're talking about calling my doctor in to break my water. And I was like, we just started this. You guys are always the ones going on and on about don't come in too early. you know, labor takes a long time, blah, blah, blah. Like, and you want to break my water? I was like, no. I said, I want to give it some time, see if it does it naturally. I was like, my husband should be here by like 3:30. Because they made it sound like, oh, once we break this water, you're going to have this baby. And I didn't feel like, I felt like it would be some time. I really did. And here's the other thing I want to say. My doctor was like on call. My doctor was on the floor. He was there. And he was with my daughter too. And that was such a God thing because I love my doctor. I trust my doctor. I don't really like being handled by other doctors. I had a doctor that I didn't like, and I was handled by a doctor that wasn't even my doctor with my first daughter. And so I guess that's how that works, is if your doctor's not on the floor or your doctor is not on call, your doctor's not delivering your baby. That's what I'm gathering. But my doctor was there both times. God was really doing things for me, let me tell you. But anyway, so they're wanting to call him in. And I'm like, look, my husband is going to be here at like 3:30. I at least want to wait till after that. They're like, okay. Like, they didn't like that. Several of the staff members did not love that I was waiting. But I was like, I'm sorry. And we're talking, I don't even know what I was dilated to it, you know, whenever they're talking about all this. So, we go on. And I'm trying to think how this went. Because my husband got there at 3:30. I want to revisit the pain that I was experiencing with the epidural. I was still experiencing pain. It seemed to be getting more intense. What they decided to do was get me moving with the peanut ball, because motion is lotion and you can't move when you've had an epidural and blah, blah, blah. So we're doing peanut ball stuff, which is great. But it was a very painful experience. Like, I did the same thing with my daughter. It was different. This was becoming more and more painful. I could feel more pain in my right side. And then I could feel pain in my belly. And it started off like more on the right side, and then it moved across the entirety of the lower part of my belly. And it grew in intensity. And so they had me on my right side to try to, like, I guess, pull the epidural, the medication that direction or whatever. And it just wasn't really working. It hurt slightly less when I was on my right side. When they put me on my left side, it hurt way more. But, like, basically the entirety of the front of my belly, like the lower part of my belly, was just, it was very painful. And the one nurse, in here somewhere I had a nurse shift change. And the nurse that I had earlier had told me, because I had this whole spiel about this epidural. And you have to get this whole spiel. You have to sign off on it. And then you get this other spiel. Like, there's so many spiels. There's so much stuff. The nurse had told me, she was like, if you start to feel pain that is akin to what you were feeling this morning when you came in, let us know. And we will get the anesthesiologist back in here to redose you. Basically, what I think she was saying is, you know, you're a redhead. This dosage is based off of your height. And it might not be enough, because the way she was talking to me is like, you may have to be redosed. And I was like, okay. Because yes, I'm feeling stuff, and this is my experience with epidurals. I told her all that. Now I have a new nurse. And I like that nurse. My husband did not like that nurse. I like that nurse. And so but you know what? Here's the other thing that's wild. I still know names of the nurses that was there with my daughters. This one, I don't. There was so many nurses, you guys. nurses were changing shift like mid-shift. It was they must have been working shorter shifts. I don't know what was going on, but the volume of nurses that I had in the short amount of time I was at the hospital having him, I could not believe it. He's calm and cool. We're gonna chill a minute. So I had this new nurse, and I really didn't call my nurses. That's the thing. I really didn't call my nurses in, but I buzzed her in after like quite a while. And I tried to hit the button, and I couldn't, nothing was happening. The light wasn't coming on or whatever it was. Anyway, I called her in. She walks in, and I'm like, hey, I'm kind of in a lot of pain. And she's like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, no, I mean, I can feel a lot. She's like, well, you're gonna have pressure. I'm like, I know. I don't care about the pressure. I care about the pain. And I'm having a lot of pain. It's not a little pain, it's a lot of pain. And she's like, oh, huh. And she goes, well, we can try this pose, or we could try that, like whatever she was saying. And I said, I don't know. I just know that this is what's happening. This is how it's behaving. And I said, I know Liz, the nurse earlier today, I do remember her name. I had 2 Liz's, and they were my favorite. But I said, she told me that if the pain becomes like what I was experiencing this morning, that you guys would probably need to get the anesthesiologist up here. And I said, it hurts. Like, it's real bad. And she's like, huh, well, let's try this. And if it doesn't work, then we'll get the anesthesiologist up here. I was like, okay. So she put me in this other position. And she left, and she came back like 15 minutes later, and she's like, so how are you feeling? I was like, I'm in pain, dude. Like, no joke. I don't know why I'm hurting so bad with an epidural. I don't know what's going on, but it hurts. Again, I think, you know, she's like, you're talking to me. You are obviously not in a lot of pain, you know, but it was a lot. I have things to go off of. And I was like, it was hurting really bad. There was nothing comfortable. Nothing remotely comfortable about what I was doing. It's just, now I'm in tremendous pain, but I can't move. So she says, I'm gonna call the anesthesiologist in. So she calls him in. He comes back. My husband and mom, you know, they're here now and stuff. And we have a conversation. He wants to know what the pain is like, what it feels like what degree it is. I go through the whole thing, telling him everything too, how my previous epidurals behaved, how this one is behaving, how I'm just confused that I can get a whole epidural and my belly just feels like it's getting ripped apart. And he's like, yeah, that's not good. So he doses me, but here's the thing. The nurse, before she left, before she buzzed him in, she tells me that my doses on like the epidural thing has run out. And I'm like, maybe that happens. I mean, I don't know. I had an epidural for probably approximately maybe 4 or 5 hours at that point. Maybe that's a long time. I don't know. But I had run out of doses. Oh, I totally didn't put this in here either. They did come in and break my water. So after my husband showed up at 3:30, everybody was really happy to see him, and they got my doctor there as soon as possible to break my water. So he didn't come and break my water. I don't remember what time it was he came and broke my water. If I'm honest, I don't remember that. Another reason that I am so incredibly grateful that I got the epidural, because having your water broke is bonkers. I don't want to scare anybody. It's just I wasn't prepared. Okay. It's my 3rd child. and I've never had to have my water broke, and here comes my doctor with a plastic crochet hook, and I'm like, what are you doing with that? Where are you going with that? The other thing is the reason why I'm grateful that I did decide to get an epidural is those checks, man. Those checks are intense, and they're long. They take forever. Some of those nurses, those checks, I'm like, how long are you going to be doing this? This is so much more than just a check. How long are you actually going to be in there checking? And I don't know what all they were doing, but what I do know is it's just a different experience than I've had before, okay? And so it's a good thing that I had the epidural, that's all. So they broke my water, right? Broke my water, and then I'm getting redosed. And what he does is he sends an injection straight into my line. And when he does that, I feel relief. I feel intensity going off of my joints, because that's another thing, you guys. I have EDS. I'm diagnosed with EDS now, and I'm 36. I'll be 37 in just like a few days. And so I think that plays a part with things, with the whole labor process and everything. I really do. But the pain that I was feeling in my belly was really crazy, and it was really intense, and I didn't understand it. And here's the thing that I will say. Through this entire pregnancy, I don't know that maybe I didn't have something that went undiagnosed or something. I don't know. I know that early on in the pregnancy, I had intense, tremendous stomach pain that just lingered, and it wouldn't go away. And then finally it did go away. But then for the entirety of my pregnancy, my belly was just really sore and tender, and like you couldn't like really touch it. You could touch it, but you couldn't, like, no pressure could be applied, which I know you don't want to apply pressure, but I'm just saying it was a completely different sensation than what I had before. So I don't know what the deal was of why it was so sore. There again, I don't know why it was so painful in my belly during my labor. But he dosed me, and basically I felt relief. But here's what I'll tell you. For the entire rest of this process, I have pain in my belly. It does not go away. Does not go away with the epidural, with the extra dose, like nothing. Does not go away. Gets slightly better. Does not go away. But what does happen is I lose full control, full mobility in my right leg. So where we were laughing about me having dead leg in my left leg, I now have dead leg in both legs. I can do nothing. Legs are dead. And I'm like, I don't care if I can feel my legs or not. I did have like a lot of pain in my legs prior to getting the epidural. So it was nice to get that relief, because the nerves were just nerving. They just were nerving. But I'm like, I don't, like, my legs were actually fine. My belly is what hurts, and it still was. Which was crazy. So anyway, my water gets broke. A little bit later, I don't know how long I laid there afterwards, she comes in, she checks me, I'm at a 7. It's like 7. Okay, well, we're gonna be here for a while, you know. Moving on, my husband leaves, because he's like, well, we're gonna be here a while. He goes to go, I don't know what he was getting. And then I don't remember what happened that made her come back in and check me again. And she's like, oh, yep, you're at a 10. You're at a 10. Do you want to do practice push? We could do a practice push. See, in my experience with my daughter, they were like, you want to just labor down? Why don't you just labor down? And I was like, yeah, I just want to labor down. This is so different. This was like herding cattle. This was like, let's push her through this entire process. And that is not how I felt with my daughter at all. I felt like, you're here to have a baby. It takes time. It's going to take time. We're here to facilitate whatever you need. This time it wasn't like that. And what's weird to me about that is when I had my daughter, that whole floor was full. They were at full capacity. They needed the rooms. this time there was only 3 families on the floor. So it's not like they were rushing me to get a room available. It just had to be the staff. And I had some really great staff that, like, I had good nurses. It's just, I still really struggle. Like, I just don't understand. But that's how I felt. I don't know. Anyway, so she's like, you want to do a practice push? And she said, let me see if your doctor wants to do, you know, push with me for a little bit, or he's going to come, or what's going to happen. I did 2 practice pushes with this nurse. She wanted to see how my body was responding to the pushing. We did 2 practice pushes, and then the next thing I know, my doctor's in there. They were set up for delivery long before. Like, that is not how it happened with my daughter either. I'm in the middle of pushing. I push for like an hour total with my daughter, but I'm in the middle of pushing. They wait until I'm crowning. The doctor comes in while I'm crowning, and they push this delivery table. It's like NASCAR. They push this table in with all these delivering like supplies and everything, and they get him all dressed, and then he delivers the baby and everything, and then they whisk everything away, and it's gone and it's done. That delivery table was basically almost sitting in my room after my water was broke. It was sitting in there for like a couple hours. They were just like, let's get this baby out. And I'm like, I don't know. It's weird. So anyway, I do these practice pushes with this nurse. And then she's like, oh, okay, you know, whatever. Here comes my doctor. He had nothing better to do. He was on call. So that's, you know, he was just kind of like, I'm here. Let's just push. You know what I mean? Like, hey, let's do it. He's like, you know, yeah. So the nurses are all in there, and everybody's just hanging out for me to push. And oddly enough, with my first daughter, and I know it's like the more kids you have, but with my first daughter, I pushed for almost 3 hours, and I had a 2nd-degree tear. With my second daughter, I pushed for an hour, no tear. With him, I pushed for like 15 minutes, no tear. But it was very painful. It was the most painful pushing experience. The contractions were intense. I was feeling the pain in my belly. And then the other thing that happened was whenever I was ready to push, a lot of the water was gone from my belly, right? But not all of it, and I'll get to that. His feet were up here, up in front of my ribs. Like, I could see them up on top of my ribs. And trying to navigate my body and push around that, because he was like bored straight, I guess. Trying to push around him was really hard. But anyway, I did 2 sets of 3 or 3 sets of 3, I can't remember. And my contractions would come in really close together. Next thing I know, they're pulling them out. And I'm like, what the heck? They then tell me that his cord is really short. So, and it was really short. He was like not even up to my belly button. And then my husband cut the cord and everything. And then they put him up on me skin to skin. The placenta was delivered. And so here's the other thing that happened. I had a lot of water. And I think that was kind of what was prohibiting things. I don't recall that being an issue with my first daughter. I had a lot of swelling in my body in general, but with my first daughter, I don't remember that being a thing. With my second daughter, I had a ton of water. Nothing was diagnosed with it. Nothing was anything, but I had just a ton of water. I had an ultrasound with him, and the technician told me, you have a lot of water. You're probably going to have a discussion with your doctor about that. My doctor just said that it was normal. I wasn't diagnosed with anything. There was nothing there. But that was part of the concern, apparently, for my entire labor process, was this bulgy bag of water they kept talking about. because it was prohibiting him from coming down on the cervix. And in hindsight, now knowing what I know about that, that's probably what happened with my second daughter as well, because she couldn't descend down on the cervix either. And I had a ton of water with her. And I flooded the floor and shot it all over everybody, and, you know. So with this, you know, he broke my water and he let a lot of water out. But then whenever I was pushing, once he came out, a bunch of water came out everywhere, all over him, all over the nurse, all over the floor. And they had like a cone, but I guess I missed the cone. I don't know what happened there. And then when they delivered the placenta, more water came out then too. So I just had a lot of water. The placenta was small. The cord didn't look very fat to me, and it was short. And the whole thing seemed really odd to me. Even when they broke my water, the nurse asked me, she goes, "And you weren't diagnosed with poly?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about, poly." And my doctor was literally sitting there breaking my water in the process. Like, it was almost like, "You didn't diagnose her with poly?" And he's like, "No." So I have since looked that up. That makes sense to me, but I don't know. I don't know. Very possible that I had that twice. I mean, but I don't know. I was never diagnosed with it, so I don't know. So basically, the main takeaway as far as that goes is it was the fastest. In some ways, it was the easiest. I was super excited. Like, I didn't really have any interventions other than, and it is intervention. I'm not saying I didn't have any interventions, but like, you know, I had the epidural and they broke my water. I didn't really want them to break my water, but I didn't adamantly tell them no after my husband came. After my husband came, I was like, whatever, do whatever you, I don't care. It's fine. But I didn't get any medication to complete. I completed on my own. For me, that was an exciting thing. And then I pushed, and it didn't take a long time, which was awesome. It was really great. And like I said, we did skin to skin. He was pretty small, you know, and he checked out pretty good right away. It was that night that we ran into some issues. And it wasn't anything tremendous or horrible, but I'll pick this story up later and give more. This is the delivery. This, I guess, we'll call this the conclusion of the delivery, because I've rambled on and on. But yeah, this will be the conclusion of the delivery. But I'll tell the rest of my hospital experience of my hospital stay, like what all happened, because we ended up staying that night and one more night, and it was just crazy. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.